All right, we've got breaking news here out of Washington. I'm Dan Andros with CBN Digital here, joined by CBN's David Brody and Kelly Wright, who's at the White House. Crazy scene just unfolded, gentlemen, and it looks like there was a big argument between Zelensky, President Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance. They were disagreeing on things. Vance was calling him out for the way he was talking, and then it looks like they've just left the White House. So, Kelly, you're there. Why don't we start with you? What happened?
Right over there, right over my shoulder, is the Oval Office. And Prime Minister Zelensky's entourage had parked there to meet President Trump. When things went south during that incredible exchange that I've never witnessed before, in all the time that I've been reporting from the White House, just never witnessed anything like that, where everything just evolved from diplomatic talks to full-on arguments and acrimony. Later on, we were waiting to go to the East Room for the larger news presser with other members of the media from Ukraine and from the United States. And typically it takes us about 30 minutes to get inside of the East Room. And as we were standing there waiting to go inside the East Room, we were told, and we began asking each other, is this going to happen? And we asked some of the White House staff, they didn't know. Well, ultimately what happened, we started hearing that Prime Minister Zelensky was leaving. Now, we don't know if he was asked to leave or if he chose to leave. We just don't know that yet. We'll find that out, I'm sure, from this White House, from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, as soon as that information becomes available. But right there at the Oval Office, we saw Zelensky get back into his car, into his entourage, and they began leaving. They drove right here, as you see me walking along this road, and you see members of the media, and he left the way he came in. That was not supposed to happen. We actually reported this morning on the 700 Club that we were anticipating a deal to be done between Ukraine and the United States on the rare minerals deal, which would have given him the kind of security that he was looking for by partnering with us. But apparently things went awry when Vice President J.D. Vance began asking questions of Zelensky, and it apparently riled him, got him on a little bit ruffled, and you could see him having an exchange, a terse exchange with the Vice President of the United States. And from there, no one stepped in to be diplomatic. And you could see how it was hurting the conversation, so much so that there's images of the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States with her head in her hands as if to say, this is not going well. And she was quite visibly shaken and disappointed. So here we are. And now what could have been a moment of win-win for Ukraine, for the United States, and even for Russia. Some critics are now saying that Russia is the only one celebrating this unfortunate turn of events. And we still don't know what the future holds now for Ukraine. And we do know from reports from Ukrainian people that they are in fear and they have anxiety about what they just witnessed. As far as the American people are concerned, we're continuing to wait and watch what President Trump and Vice President Vance will discuss with the members of the media as time continues to develop. But keep in mind, and all of you gentlemen know this, this is something they had been working on for quite a while. Vice President Vance, Steve Witkoff, General Kellogg, as well as Secretary of State Rubio. And all of them were basically there. And something just really turned, and it became not a shouting match, but one of very difficult conversations, things that you don't see in the public. You usually see that behind the scenes where they're doing the sausage making to make the diplomatic deal come through. So we don't know where things stand right now. We can only hope and pray that some sort of deal can be made to salvage this negotiation for Ukraine and for Russia to come to the table and have a peace deal.
Hey, Kelly and David, I want to throw it to you in just a second here. I just want to read President Trump's statement that he posted just a short bit ago here on Truth Social, it looks like. He said, it's a statement. It said, we had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky's not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. David, what's your response to all this?
Well, I don't even know where to begin. Kelly, to echo what you said, I mean, look, we've been covering this for decades. I've never seen this. This is just unprecedented with a small letters with unprecedented. Put it in all caps. A couple of things are going on here. First of all, there was a simmering tension, a flame, if you will, already beforehand. And then, boom, gas on the flame. So what was the gas exactly? Well, here, in my estimation, and Kelly, I'd be curious to get your take, but there were, Vance went ahead and was prodding Zelensky to a degree about being grateful and wanting him to say thank you and all of that. But then it was Zelensky that said this. He said, quote, to J.D. Vance, have you ever been to Ukraine? Have you seen the problems we have? Come once. And I think that started it. And then that's the shot. And then the chaser, if you will, was, this is where President Trump got involved, where he said, this is Zelensky saying, quote, everybody has problems, even you, as in America, but you have a nice ocean and don't feel it now, but you will feel it in the future. And at that point, the America First and Donald Trump kicked in, and the rest is in essence history in the making. I mean, I think that's what's going on. Now, as it relates to the simmering tension beforehand, look, I was on the 700 Club a couple of days ago talking to Andrew Knox, and I said specifically this, because Andrew asked me, what's the U.S. beef, if you will, with Zelensky? And the bottom line is that they believe he's been ungrateful this whole time. Now, remember, you'll hear Zelensky always at the top of his comments say, thank you, America. But then afterwards, he says a few different things. He starts to say, look, we need this. You need to help me. We've got to have this. And basically, you kind of, in a way, you owe it to us because we're, to a degree, kind of a front line before Russia takes on NATO countries and possibly even comes for the United States. So that's kind of been the underlying tone of like, you better help us. And I think that's been a part of it. Also, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, very frustrated with Zelensky, who told Marco Rubio at the time, yeah, we've got a rare minerals deal, and then went back to the Ukrainian parliament and said, actually, I didn't tell him any such thing. No way. We definitely didn't have a deal. So Rubio felt burned. They don't trust Zelensky. And that was the simmering flame going in, and then the gas today. So it's a 1-2 punch. And I think that's exactly what happened here today, guys.
Hey, and I want to.
So, David,
okay, Kelly, can I pause real quick? I wanted to
sure,
roll.
go ahead,
if you guys don't mind, I wanted to roll just like a minute or two of this exchange. We have some of it, just so if you missed it, you can kind of get a flavor for what it was like. We don't have to. It's I think a very long segment we have here, but let's just play it for a minute or so people can kind of get a feel for what was going on. Here it is.
My friends in Poland, and they are worried that you align yourself too much with Putin. What's your message for them?
Well, if I didn't align myself with both of them, you'd never have a deal. You want me to say really terrible things about Putin and then say, hi, Vladimir, how are we doing on the deal? That doesn't work that way. I'm not aligned with Putin. I'm not aligned with anybody. I'm aligned with the United States of America and for the good of the world. I'm aligned with the world, and I want to get this thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, For 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now the President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversations, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed with him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count one.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people, you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't. You're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. you have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president,
Okay, I think we're gonna pause it there for a minute,
$350
guys, because I want to get. I mean, this goes on, and this just continues on for several more minutes before it ends up. But you get the idea. They keep kind of going back and forth on there. That was probably the more heated, some of the more heated moments that happened there, but not cordial at all. And like you said before, guys, really, I don't recall ever seeing something like this. And usually, like you said, they put on kind of the nice face for the cameras, and then that's the sort of discussion you'll see behind the scenes. So, Kelly, I know you were about to hop in before we played that clip, but what's your reaction here?
So that is what I watched from inside our booth here at the White House, and I turned to a colleague from another network, and we kind of shook our heads and said, "Oh my God, I don't believe this is happening. What is going on?" Because this is not what we were anticipating. As I stated before, we anticipated something that the outcome would have been more hopeful, that there would have been a win-win situation on the table with signing a negotiation and a minerals deal for rare minerals that the United States, according to this White House, needs in order to compete with China, which has the lion's share of the market when it comes to rare minerals. Those rare minerals, by the way, are good for our military. That would have provided some security, if you will, because Ukraine would have been working in concert with us as a business partner, if you will, as a trading partner. Now we don't know where this is going. We do know one thing, that when the president really became angered and started stating that you are risking World War III and you're gambling with the lives of millions of people, we do know that President Trump has stated, and just as a matter of fact, yesterday in the East Room with Prime Minister Starmer from the UK, both men had stated that they were tired of seeing the carnage of human bodies being left and leveled on the battlefields of Ukraine, Russian and Ukrainians. And the president has stated so often that only human bodies stop those bullets and those bombs from going through. And now we don't know. I have to tell you that I don't know where this goes from here, except for the statement from the president of the United States stating that right now he doesn't believe that peace is possible because, as he stated, the way that Prime Minister Zelensky has responded and acted in this meeting. But I got to tell you that when I was growing up as a kid, my mother said, cooler heads must prevail. There must be an adult that comes into the room to broker peace. And blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. We didn't see peacemaking go on right there. And we could pick fingers. I mean, we could, pick sides and we can point fingers at each other. But the bottom line is that all three of those men will have to do some examining of themselves and then pray and see how they can get this deal back on track.
Well, I'm not a body language expert, but all you have to do is look at the body language of Zelensky, President Zelensky, in that meeting. He came in angry. He came in with a chip on his shoulder, whether it be because President Trump the other day called him a dictator, whether the fact that Zelensky believes that Trump is cozying up to Russia, and there's other reasons, obviously, as well. Honestly, a lot of it has to do with J.D. Vance's populism and Donald Trump's America First populism viewpoint that is diametrically opposed to what Biden was doing. And look, I think the truth of the matter is, and this is where the rubber meets the road, Zelensky did not want the gravy train to end financially, and Trump and Vance do. And if they're going to have a say in it, it's going to be through rare minerals. By the way, Kelly, I know you're there at the White House. I have the luxury here of looking at X and seeing some reporting coming in here. It does look like White House officials are now saying that it was Trump that kicked Zelensky out of the White House and that the rare minerals deal is off. So there's that. Those two developments, not shocking at this point.
Not shocking at all.
No, after everything that's transpired. I will say this as I kind of look a little bit here at one other note I wanted to make. That to me, I think what's interesting here is that Zelensky ultimately is going to have to figure out the way forward here, because the truth of the matter is, now that the rare minerals deal is off, what is that? A lot of people are going to say, okay, so what does that mean for just A, peace between Ukraine and Russia, and B, this rare minerals deal. Well, I can tell you this. I don't know about peace for Ukraine and Russia. That's above my pay grade. But I will say this on the rare minerals situation. Look, if Zelensky thinks he's going to all of a sudden try to dial this back and come back with a rare minerals deal that was like it was about to be signed today, I can guarantee you that's not happening. Donald Trump is going to get a lot more than what Zelensky could have had today. That's called the art of the deal. That was going to be about 50% split. It wouldn't surprise me for Trump to say, okay, you know what, after the stunt you pulled in the Oval Office, that'll be 75% that we're going to take, or whatever it is. But that's the way Trump operates. And this is just an absolute disastrous outcome, and not even for Zelensky, but potentially for the people of Ukraine.
Yeah, I got to say, guys, I mean, I know you've touched on it a little bit, but you mentioned the body language with Zelensky, and like we were talking about, that this is a setting where you just play nice for the cameras typically, and you just sort of say, "Hey, we're working on the deal," and then you go have these discussions. And why did it seem like, now I haven't watched everything that led up to that, but the clip we played there, it does seem like Trump's sort of just explaining his position that he's not, in line with this side or that side. He's just trying to get this thing done. And then Zelensky sort of comes in and tries to, I mean, it does seem like he sort of gets going on this and sort of gets on his soapbox here and is saying, where was the diplomacy from 20, and that's when JD Vance jumps in and says, hey, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Why do you guys think Zelensky went down that road? Any thoughts on as to why?
Look, I'm not into Zelensky's head or his mind. I know that he's been through quite an ordeal with so many millions of his people being killed, and buildings that have been as much as 1,000 years old, those shrines and those beautiful spires and churches obliterated because of the war. I think what was going on in his mind is that he needed to stand toe-to-toe with the president. There was some acrimony between these two men. I think the president of the United States wanted to bury that, which is why he said, I'm on the side of the world. I want to get this done. I want to negotiate peace. I want to be able to have this rare minerals deal so that we can move forward in order to secure. I think Zelensky was also mindful of the fact that he was not someone who trusts Vladimir Putin. And the president of the United States says that he trusts and verifies Vladimir Putin, and he believes that Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, would have been able to go forward in making a deal and respecting that deal. But again, as Zelensky pointed out to Vice President J.D. Vance, he's been through that. He's been down that road before. And because of going down that road before and seeing Putin violate that and killing more people and not abiding by that initial deal that was made with France President Macron and other people of the EU, he probably felt that this is someone that he couldn't trust. He couldn't trust going forward, which means he wasn't really trusting President Trump to carry through the deal and to provide the security as well as provide a path towards peace for all nations involved in this.
Well, right. I think Kelly's right on obviously all of that. I'll just say that, look, ultimately regarding Putin, Zelensky is extremely frustrated with this, what he'll consider coddling of Putin. And this clearly became emotional. I think there was a machismo factor as well. Let's be honest. I think he didn't want to get humiliated there in the Oval Office, especially when J.D. Vance started saying some of the things he was saying. And I think it just kicked in. I mean, he's trying. I mean, if you're Zelensky, let's all go in the mind of Zelensky for a second. He's been through this horrible war, that Russia being the aggressor. He's seen his country lose about 20% of their land. I think Russia had 7% control before the war because of Crimea and X, Y, and Z, and now it's 27%. So you're on tough ground. So I think the feeling, at least with Zelensky, was that he felt like his back was against the wall, and he felt like this was the right card to play. It was not the right card to play. Speaking of cards, he had no cards to play. I mean, he just doesn't have any cards to play. And let's also remember, we go back to President Trump and the art of the deal mentality. Let's remember that Zelensky and Putin and their cohorts on both sides had conversations in the first 3 to 4 weeks of this war, 6 of them. There was a deal that was almost struck. And Trump's point is, you had the deal right there on the table. You should have taken it. But Zelensky did not. And so Trump doesn't respect Zelensky as a negotiator and a lot of other things. And I think all of this is simmering in the background. And I just want to say one last thing, because a lot of people will say, well, Trump's a Putin apologist. Let me say this. If Putin was sitting there today in the Zelensky spot, but here's the key. If you're going to do apples to apples, if United States was supporting Russia to the tune of what we're supporting Zelensky, and of course we know that would never be the case, or at least not in the here and now, Trump would say the same thing if Putin came in with that type of attitude. It's not about Putin. It's not about Russia. It's about, in this case, being grateful and America first, because we gave you all that money and this is the thanks we get. So if Putin had that same attitude and Russia had that same attitude, if the roles were reversed, Trump would probably pull the same exact thing. That's really, I believe, the common denominator here.
Yeah. And
so, David, let me bring Dan. I'm sorry. I just want to expound upon what David is saying. So, David was talking about those rare minerals, and he also mentioned the fact that Russia has taken over a substantial portion of Ukraine, mostly in the eastern part of Ukraine. Well, that's where most of those rare minerals are located. So, you have to look at President Trump, already aware of this and aware of the tasks that would lie ahead had this deal been actually executed, about where our people would be able to find those rare minerals. It takes 5 to 10 years to start digging them. Would they have been allowed to go into those Russian occupied areas? And just yesterday, during the meeting with the Prime Minister of the UK, the president alluded to the fact that that was something they were going to have to investigate to see if Russia would give back some of that land. Now we don't know what will happen, except to rest assured that Vladimir Putin will probably be looking at this very, very openly to figure out what his next move will be. And Volodymyr Zelensky will be returning back to his country humiliated.
And can I just, I'm sorry, Dan, one last thing. I'm sorry, real quick.
No, go ahead.
Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, just came out with this, said, quote, "Thank you, President Trump." Remember, Bessent was one of the key guys in the rare minerals.
That's right. He was.
He said, quote, "Thank you, President Trump, for standing up for the American people and our nation on the global stage." And so it gets back to that line that Zelensky had about, you're not going to feel it now. You've got an ocean between you, but you will eventually. I really believe that was the line that clearly set President Trump off and really gave President Trump an America first mentality in a vociferous way, if you will. But I just think that line by Bessent specifically kind of goes to the idea that Zelensky stepped into a tunnel or whirlwind, and it was right up President Trump's wheelhouse here.
Yeah. So if you're just joining us, I just wanted to reset because we have lots of people coming in here as we're talking. Just moments ago at the White House, as they kind of have their what do they call? What's the official name for this? The little sit down that they have in front of the
gaggle.
The gaggle.
It's an Oval Office gaggle where the members of the pool here at the White House, with the White House Correspondents Association, there's a pool that actually goes into those places like the Oval Office or an Air Force One, and they have a gaggle or a preliminary news briefing, if you will, where reporters who are part of that pool are able to ask the President of the United States and his guests questions, and that's what was going on there. And it's usually very nice, very perfunctory, and very cordial. You glean some information. It's kind of the presser before the big presser, which was supposed to take place. That's what I was waiting in line for. When I watched all this unfold, that's when things went awry.
And Zelensky's out. Zelensky's out there when J.D. Vance was pressing him. What you normally do in that situation as a world leader, if you disagree, you say, well, looking forward to having those discussions as we move forward this afternoon. And he didn't do that. Yeah. And that was the problem. Big mistake.
Right. And that's essentially what I was just going to explain to everybody that's just joining in. Maybe they hadn't seen this exchange. They're at this gaggle, like David and Kelly just explained. And instead of letting it wait, it just devolved right out in front of the cameras. And they get into this exchange that lasts for quite some time, which we played a little bit of it a few minutes ago. After we're wrapped up here, you can go back and rewind, and we have a big chunk of that we played and reacted to. And then Zelensky left the White House. Apparently, according to David's reporting, that it was the Trump administration said, okay, time for you to leave. So they left, and Kelly actually witnessed the motorcade and Zelensky leaving right behind where he was standing. So that bilateral meeting that was supposed to happen after this gaggle didn't take place. And so now here we are. And you mentioned it, David, that Zelensky goes home humiliated. I was going to ask, how do you think this plays with Ukrainians? Because, here you have a lot of people, particularly in MAGA, who are kind of fed up with what they view as just sort of a gravy train for Zelensky. And so a lot of them, and, for Trump and for Vance, like being tough on Zelensky when he's doing something like that makes sense. What about for Zelensky? What do you think? How do you think this plays with sort of the rank and file Ukrainian back home?
Well, Kelly, go ahead, Kelly. Please, go ahead. I'd like to hear what you have to say, please.
So Zelensky's up against, look, you're trying to climb a mountain, and he has now put himself in front of a boulder to push that boulder up the mountain. He has to go back empty-handed without a deal and with questions about what he's going to do for security in terms of securing his homeland, which has been devastated and decimated by the aggression that's gone on within this warfare. So much carnage. He has a lot of answers to come up with to questions that people in his own country and Ukrainians here in America and abroad are now asking. And Ukrainians are responding to this as the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States did, with her head in her hand, showing the disappointment that this went awry. And then you've got to factor in the heartbreak for so many families who are Ukrainian. They lost their loved ones. And then there's the Ukrainian faithful, people who believe in Christ, believe in faith. And now they're praying. They've been praying all along, but now their prayers are even more intense as they don't understand what's going to happen with an uncertain future.
Here's the way I see it. And I may be short-sighted on this, but I don't think so. I think right now the choices for the Ukrainian people are either a worse deal for them that Zelensky works out with Trump, or a catastrophic non-deal for the country. I think those are the two options at this point. Look, Trump and J.D. Vance are not going to budge on this. So Zelensky is faced with a choice. As President Trump said today, he doesn't have any. What cards does Zelensky have to play? Someone please tell me a card that Zelensky has to play. So he's got two choices. The deal now is going to be a worse one for Ukraine. And that means whether it be rare earth minerals, whether it be Russia gets more territory than Zelensky probably would like to see. That's the worst deal. The catastrophic deal is that President Trump sends out a Truth Social and says the gravy train has stopped. And then at that point, you're looking, well, we know exactly what you're looking at. We're looking at no more Ukraine. I mean, that ultimately would be the end of Ukraine, unless someone else can convince me otherwise. I don't see it any other way.
Yeah, if that's the case, and that scenario proves true, the greater question is what happens to NATO, what happens to the EU, which was discussed here at the East Room just yesterday with, I go back to UK Prime Minister Starmer, as well as before that, the President of France, Macron, where both of these men representing the two largest nations and the most profitable nations within the EU. And of course, the Brexit situation wherein the UK stepped away from the EU. The president already has some misgivings with the EU and with the NATO alliance. So the broader question is, what becomes of the United States relationship with NATO and the EU on the heels of what appeared to be a very successful meeting with Macron of France as well as Starmer of UK. Both of these leaders, and if you remember yesterday, effusively, the Prime Minister of the UK was heaping praise on President Donald Trump for opening up this dialogue between Russia and Ukraine and actually trying to celebrate a victory because of this rare minerals deal. And now all of that seems to be temporarily on hold, and we will pray that it remains temporarily on hold and in some way can be resurrected. Again, going back to that thought process that my mother used to tell me, let cooler heads prevail. Hope has to prevail. There has to be faith applied. There has to be a way of getting back to the table in order to save the millions of people that the President of the United States wants to save and to win peace for the world, starting there in Ukraine. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you count it all out when this president will try to find a way to get a deal done.
All
Can I,
right.
can I say one last thing?
Yep. Yeah. Wrap it up, David. We got to go after this, but give me
old
your final
adage.
thoughts here.
The old adage, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Don't
Yeah.
bite the hand that feeds you. And Zelensky not only took a bite, tried to, out of Trump and others, he did it on American soil in the Oval Office. That is a political 101 no-no, and now it could cost him and his country deeply, greatly.
All right, CBN's
This will go
David
down in
Brody.
history.
Yeah, it sure will. CBN's David Brody, CBN's Kelly Wright there at the White House. Gentlemen, thank you so much for breaking this down. We will look to see you. And if you want to catch more analysis on this, we'll be talking about it on Faith Nation tonight, 6 p.m. on the CBN News Channel. Make sure you check that out. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us here for this live stream. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit the notification bell there on YouTube if you want to catch our live streams when we go live, when we react to things that are happening right now, like this heated exchange between Ukrainian President Zelensky and Vice President Vance and President Donald Trump. A very heated exchange ended up with Zelensky departing the White House, the Trump administration basically kicking him off the premises, according to our reports from David, that David had gotten there while we were talking. So thank you all for watching. Continue to watch CBN News breaking coverage on this. God bless you all, and we'll see you soon.